Alright, this one on the bench top for repair is a Mr. Christmas gold label World's Fair Carousel. And here it is on the side. Here's the bottom where it says Mr. Christmas. And does this one have a date? No. It is a 15 volt DC Mr. Christmas Ferris wheel. Since they do come in different voltages, you need to make sure you have the right power adapter going into it. The problem with this one is I was told it does not spin, but everything else works. So let's turn it on. You can hear that motor. See the lights. Music works, but it's really quiet. It is changing songs. Not sure why it's quiet. Might be the draw from the motor freewheeling. I'm assuming it's going to have a broken drive belt. Could be wrong. Could be a broken gear. That motor is humming right along. Mr. Christmas carousels. There's a screw under here that holds the center in and pops out. If you can pop this off, great. If you have to, use heat. I'm just going around the edges, working it slowly, seeing if I can get it to break free. It is moving. I'm just using a small blade screwdriver. And what I'm doing is I'm sticking it and twisting it just a little bit to try and break its adhesion to the fabric, because I don't want to tear it, since Mr. Christmas does use fabric, whereas some of the cheaper brands, it's just painted plastic. It is coming out slowly. Most of these I find just have a little bit of glue and it's just a press fit. So I'm hoping this one's the same way. Little bit of glue and just pressed in. This is not torn fabric, this is the glue absorbing the dye. And then we have a Phillips screwdriver in there. Now it's all the way loose. Screwdriver's caught on the fabric. Or excuse me, the screw's caught on the fabric. I do need to get it out because it'll fall inside the canopy, which is hollow, and then I have to fish it out anyway. Tweezers. No. Guess I'll fight with it later. Let's just see if we can get the rest of this apart. Normally once you unscrew the center, the whole thing just slides off, but it's not sliding off. So something else is missing. Just make sure there's no hidden screws real quick. There is not. There's little tabs right here. Maybe these will separate carefully. Yes. So once you remove the screw, there are little tabs under the edge that you push in towards the center, and you can hopefully see that they're popping free. There we go. You can hear the screw caught inside the hollow section right here. Okay, so this one, the drive mechanism's on the top, and there would be the belt. The drive mechanism on most carousels is in the bottom, but it makes sense. This has got such a thin bottom that it's sticking on the top for the space. You can see how they did the lighting on the outside. You just got a central wire that goes around on the top, another central wire that goes around on the bottom lip. Hopefully you can see that. And then those central wires are connected to this little gray ribbon cable, which gives you your power for your outside lighting. So these wires are exposed, they're covered in, it looks like, solder the entire way. So if something metallic got in here, it could short out your LED lighting. So just be aware of that. So it looks like to get to the motor assembly, we need to remove this nut, because there are no screws except for the two screws here that hold the speaker in. And I'm going to check the speaker too once we get this apart to see if the speaker is blown, and that's why it's so quiet. It is an 8 ohm 0.5 watt speaker, in case you can't read it on the camera. And I'm going to try and find my pliers. Get that broke free there. It's not super tight, but they have a little bit of adhesive right here where this red is, that I had to crack free to get this nut off. It's probably only finger tight. And now we just walk the center up carefully, because we do have wires going through. And that's about as high as I can go because of the speaker. The gears look good. We got, looks like a leaf from a tree in the gear. Let me check this other gear, a little idler. This has got some good gear reduction for some torque. I'm checking all the gears that are inside. I'm going to bring it up to the camera in just a moment and show you what I'm looking at. But all the gears appear to be good. Just needs a big thick belt. I don't know if you can see in there. I have the other light off to make it a little bit easier. When this pulley turns, it turns a cluster of little gears, pancake gears, and it turns this outer gear, which then turns the hub gear right there. So if I turn this gear, see if you can hear it, you'll hear the torque. Yeah, she's got some good power. It's not hooked up to the motor, there's no belt. Now this is a big heavy belt, and I don't know if I have one that heavy, so we are going to look. I have a little belt drawer right below the screen mat that you can't see on the camera. And that's what I'm looking at right now. Got all shapes and sizes of belts, but I don't know if I have this one. Literally. Let me try. I don't know. This one might work. Let's see if I can't get a belt, or I don't have one, I'll just have to order a belt. But I'm gonna try this belt. This belt's a thick belt, so it's slightly smaller, but it's got more stretch because it's not vulcanized. So I'm gonna see if this belt can handle the torque. It'd be so much easier if I could get this top assembly off, but those wires are limiting me on what I can do. I don't feel like cutting them or soldering them or desoldering them to make them come off. But you can do it from the side. If you're good with your fingers, you can probably just do it with your fingers. But I'm going to use some tweezers to help me, since I'm not as good with my fingers as I used to be. Alright. Carefully feed this back down. Make sure it's lined up on the teeth. It is. I'm just going to spin the nut on to prevent it from lifting up. I am not going to torque it. Just going to put it on to where it touches the plastic housing. That way the torque doesn't break one of the gears that interface with the rotation. And now we have rotation. We also have a panel of lights that don't work. These lights right here on this panel aren't on. So I'm just going to hang the broken belt on that panel just to make sure there's no other ones. The solder joints look good, but that can be very deceiving. So let's resolder the solder connections on this panel. I'll try and show you. You can see the one panel is not lit up. Hopefully you saw it. I forgot the other light's on now. All the lights in the center are on, going up and down the center hub. So we just have one panel that's not working. So it could be the solder joint here on the outside, because there's two, or the solder joint on the inside, which there, of course, there's two. So I'm going to touch them up. And make sure, see if we can get that working. By mixing new solder, it melts into the old solder, allowing new adhesion or a new connection. This is probably lead-free solder, since a lot of companies seem to use it. And it probably just broke free. Hopefully. This one on the front's a little more tricky because the solder is right next to the LEDs and I don't want to damage the LED. So I'm going to pull out some magnifying specs so I can do the solder pad. And we got light. So, this one had a couple of problems so far. Bad belt. Found one that's working. A bad LED panel. Lost connection from the solder joint. Very easy to fix if that's the only problem. And now, let's check the volume. Wherever the knob went. Right there. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to redo the connections, because I don't know if you know, you may have heard it, but when I was wiggling the connection with the tweezers, the speaker's volume got a hair louder. So I want to reflow the solder on these two speaker connections. With a fine tip, you can get in there. If you don't have a fine tip, just take the two screws out, pull the speaker out. Just be aware that soldering guns are magnetic, because they're metal. There's a big magnet right here. So it keeps wanting to pull the soldering pin over. So whenever you solder on a speaker like this, just be aware that the speaker is trying to pull your soldering mechanism over. Also, try not to burn the plastic with your soldering, because it smells bad. Nope, didn't change it. So either this is a very quiet piece, or it's got a bad volume knob in the bottom. It's not crackling. Well, I'll ask the owner, but as far as I know, he just needed it turning again. I'm tightening the nut so I can put a dab of glue on it. Also, these wires are supposed to be glued right here, so we're going to glue those back down. Trusty glue gun. And I had it plugged into where I plug in my glue gun. So this one's relatively simple to get into, at least to get to the top part, which is the part you're probably going to break. Slowly pry off the center. It is hot glued, so if you can't get it with a screwdriver carefully or a prying mechanism, apply a little heat. You don't want to burn your fabric, and you don't want to melt your plastic plug. Pop it off. If you lost the belt, you have one little nut which has a little dab of glue so it doesn't break itself free, because the rotating mass could cause this nut to spin. The horses are not supposed to go up and down. I know a lot of Ferris wheels, the horses go up and down. This one's not designed for that. If you lost connection on one of your light packs, on these LED strips that go around the outside edge, check the solder. There's a chance that you have a bad solder joint. I'm just removing some of the glue. Yeah, it's a pretty simple unit, pretty basic. The bottom, I can see the circuit board for the switches right here. It probably has a bad potentiometer or a volume knob, and that's probably causing it to have such a low volume. But his concern was for the display that it doesn't rotate. Most people that have big displays don't have the volumes on to begin with, so it wasn't a high concern when he dropped it off and told me what was wrong. All he says he needs it to rotate again. So, rotation it is, and light repair. So, just wait for this thing to get warm, finish it off. Simple, quick, easy, very rare it seems like, so it's kind of nice. I don't get too many that are like that. They always seem to be well entailed. If you have to remove this thing completely for some reason, you're going to have to desolder these wires and pull this whole hub out to get this piece off of the bottom. These wires are not long enough to pull this off to the side. Also, if you're pulling this piece straight out, the actual rotating carousel, you have to be able to feed the wires through the hole in the center, which you can't do if there's things attached to the other end of them, like a motor or a speaker. Come on. There we go. Now we're getting warm. Like any hot glue, you should probably hold it for a few seconds to make sure it doesn't lift. There we go. I just push the screw back down in the center. And we definitely need to turn this off. Trying to line these fingers up to their holes, and apparently I was off. You don't want to jerk it around too much because these fingers actually go between those wires for these outer LEDs. So if you don't get it the first time, just try and try again until you can get it to clip, which I still didn't get. Okay, that time I should be good. And we're caught on the screw. There we go. Yep. So, clip, clip, clip. Pop the screw back down. Just a little bit of hot glue on the cork. Put in. There we go. I'm going to kill the light so you can see what this thing looks like in the dark or low light, since not everybody knows what these look like. There we go. Turn it off. Light's coming back. So, this has been the Mr. Christmas Gold Label World's Fair Carousel. broken drive belt, how to get into it, and how to look at those gears, which you saw they're just between the sandwich plastic. If you have to go much further, you will have to desolder those wires to the motor and the speaker to get into the gearbox itself if you have a broken gear, and to access the base where the circuit board is for the switches and incoming power port. And if you have this piece, 15 volts DC is its power supply. So that way if you're going through power supplies, you don't plug the wrong one in. Because if it's too low of a voltage, you can do almost the same amount of damage as if you put too high of a voltage in it. And we don't want to do that. So, short video. Thanks for watching.